My name's Brian Connolly. I'm from here, Yarrabah, but my tribal group from Wujal, which is the Guga Yalanji tribe. I'm actually a Guga Nungal boy, so it's knowing where you come from, it's important, I believe. I didn't really know much about my people. I just knew a particular area that I came from. I was told that I was from Wujal. But as I started to grow, I started asking questions to my parents, what's our tribal group, where we're from, is Wujal our home, and stuff like that. Yeah, I started feeling depressed as I grew up because I felt I lost my identity. I felt I lost touch with who I really am. Then I turned to drinking, and some of the problems that started to come out of drinking, I came home and I was very abusive towards my family. I just met this girl that I felt I wanted to spend a bit of time with, and to actually allow her to come closer to me, it was quite hard sharing some of my true feelings, how I really felt about life and what I wanted and what I expected out of life. I believe it was not knowing who I really was, not knowing who I really am. It played a big part in the first stages of our relationship, because I was very quiet about things that I wanted to do, and I was more or less watching her, what she was doing, and seeing how she was acting, and seeing if she was the right one that I wanted to spend my life with. It's hard when you're a young person going through the first stages of life, which is knowing what you really want out of life. I thought, well, the best thing to do is do what my mates are doing. Get into drinking and drugs and women, I suppose, was the greatest thing back in our time when we were growing up. As young men, the more women we had, the more notches on our belt we could boast about, I suppose. But during that time, I started to think about, well, what effects it's going to play on my life later on down the track. Am I going to be the man that I wanted to be, or am I going to become somebody that I don't want to be? So I started to think about these things in my life. But I couldn't shake the drinking. I couldn't shake drugs. I couldn't do too many things that I really wanted to do. I felt I was stuck in this mud. It was hard. It was hard to overcome some of the problems. On my down moments, you sort of feel that you're losing grip of your life. You feel that you're being told that you should live your life. So it's a depressing feeling, and I know it really depressed me, where I didn't want anyone telling me what I wanted. I wanted to be what I wanted to be. And I said to myself, if this is the way life's going to be, well, I'm just going to start drinking, and drinking heavily. And as I got more and more involved, or heavily drinking alcohol, we're having more and more wild thoughts. We're having thoughts about getting rid of life altogether. It's a feeling that you don't want to think about, but it comes up. In communities, you don't have too much options. So we felt, some of the options we had were to turn to drinking, drugs, violence. violence usually means that it gives you peace of mind, that people will leave you alone, they'll respect you for who you want to be, So, I started to become this aggressive type person, I was aggressive towards the people that showed affection to me, and I didn't realize at that time that the ones that I was hurting was my own family, the people that really loved me, So I started to think about changes, but the action of change never came till later on. And I remember this time I was smoking. I went down into the scrub near our family farm, and I was there till about 3 o'clock in the morning, smoking drugs myself. At the time I just bought a pound of dope. And I was sitting there and I was just smoking, and I felt, I was happy, But it started to change when I sat there and just went quiet for a moment, everything went peaceful. Then all these thoughts started to rush through my mind, and then all of a sudden I seen this white figure move in behind the trees. And I sort of stood up and I looked. I couldn't see. I was that probably stoned. Couldn't see past my face. And then all of a sudden I saw this figure standing before me, and it was my dad. My dad said to me, he said, "I can either beat you up, but that won't do anything to help you. So I might as well sit with you and we'll talk." I was sitting there and I remember him talking about what he went through in life. And then he asked me the same questions. What are you going through? How can I help you, It was quite hard because to have that relationship with my dad I didn't have, It was hard to sit there to talk to him about my feelings. Because every other time I wanted to tell him about my feelings, he was too busy for me, That's how I felt. But this one night, he decided to talk to me and to explain how I really felt. It was hard. So I remember I had to keep smoking to build up my confidence to tell him how I was feeling, and he was a boxer. And to live up to that expectation was quite hard. It was more pressure on my life. It was hard enough living with the expectation that I set myself to be like him, And I realized that these were the things that were driving me towards suicide, I realized these were the problems that I needed to deal with in my life, Then I really thought about it. You know what he said to me? He said, "You're not me." He said, "I am Wayne. You are Brian." He said, "You be the best Brian you can be, That's the best advice you can give anybody, is not to be somebody that you're not. Just be yourself, So from that day, that very moment, I couldn't get stoned anymore. Like I said, I had a pound of dope on me that I couldn't smoke anymore because it wasn't just doing anything for me. So I gave the rest of it away. I got up and I said, well, as of tomorrow, that's it for me. Time to go straight, Yeah, so that's why I started to cut myself off it. And I remember it went on for another 2 months before I was actually free from it. And I can honestly say I'm free from it because to this very day I still don't smoke and I don't drink alcohol. I get depressed, but there's tools and mechanisms in place now for me that I set up for myself. Well, first and foremost, I got a dartboard at home. Then I go outside and I play darts. That usually deals with the lonely sort of feeling. Depression, I deal with it by going fishing or hunting. I take my aggression out on something else. And if I got enough energy to, if I want to throw punches and stuff like that, I pull this lawnmower and I start mowing the lawn. So I do stuff to combat my feelings and my anger. So, well, To identify what you've been through is quite easy. For me, it's knowing the similar patterns that I'd encountered early on in my life. You know, it's at that moment when you feel like you want to go and have a beer, I actually sit and think, well, why I want a beer? What's making me feel that I want a beer? And usually because of the pressures of work or, you know, just having a bad day. So I combat that with something else. I look at playing darts with my mates. You know, I bring mates around who don't drink. You know, to live the lifestyle that I'm living, I have to hang around with people who don't indulge in drinking. So I got a group of mates who don't drink. When I want their company is usually the time that I want to drink. So I remember, you know, the good times we can have without alcohol. I would like to say one thing, don't say that you can't do anything, because if you put your mind to anything, you can do whatever you want. If this video can inspire anybody about changing their life, please consider, you know, what you really want in life and find people that will support you to achieve those goals.